Hello, everybody. Russell Hill, your host of WTF, and that is what the fixed ops to all of you. And I'm really excited to be joined by.
I'm Charity. I am the co-host here at What the Fixed Ops. And before I introduce you to our guest, I want to give a special shout out to WYNN'S. Check them out. There's a link in the description below. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our guest today. His name is Bob Gower. He is the COO or the developer at Traver Connect. Bob, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Charity and Russ. I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
We're glad to have you here. So this is I've seen you on, with Kaylee, with Brooke Furness. It's like, dude, we got to get Bob on here. I mean, everybody is booking him. So your all your podcasts you've done have been really amazing. So we're really excited, humbled, and honored to have you on our show today. And I'm sure everybody is too. And for those of you, now I'm going to say, everybody raise your hand if you heard of Traver Connect. Okay, I can see all the hands out there. I got to tell you, my origin story with him or the company was 1996 or 97. I went to Traver Boot Camp in Houston, Texas, when BDC was the all thing, and it was amazing. Some of the things that I learned that I still carry with me today, like the foo, right? Phone up, follow up, and other things of that nature. And that's who Bob, you and John basically, or you built this company from scratch, didn't you?
Well, John built the company, but it started in 1990. I actually was fortunate enough to be a customer. And in 1991, a lot of the stores that he worked with, the Sterling McCalls and the Elways and the Butler Brothers and the Leiths, were using him in my 20 group. And I flew down to Houston and I went to Sterling McCall, spent a week. And that's how I met John, because I said at the end of the week, wow, this isn't perfect, but I love the process. Anybody could do this and enhance the results of their business. We used to stand around waiting for ups. And this was a process that drove 1, 2, or 3 appointments per salesperson. And I always love these dealers because they're so big that we're doing it that they couldn't count their floor traffic. Yet I loved them because I used to say they were greedy because they wanted more, and more. And and it was all really about having a process in place to do this, to capture the ad budget. And that's how I met John as a GM of a Toyota store, the Rourke Automotive Group up in Pittsburgh. I ended up being a customer for 3 years. And of course, running a store is everybody's, I think, ultimate goal. And what I found was that I still had some lids that I wanted to, blow off.
Sure.
And it was kind of hard to do that in a store environment. So I got an opportunity to go to work for John and do it in so many stores across the country and impacting so many people. And in 2013, I had the option to actually meet with General Motors and take it as a global standard. BDC is now global standard for GM since 2013. So if you look at that little acronym that he designed and registered, BDC BDM is a registered trademark of John's. And you look to see where it's at today. I would always kid him and go like, you took this little acronym and now it's global. It's a global standard for some of our OEM partners. And I'm like, wow, that's an impact in the industry. And I think that, if you asked me when I started, what did I want to do? It was to be a GM. The reality is that's really not what we want. That's what we think we want. What we want to do is impact people, impact an industry. And, I just say wow to him because he's the originator. He's an innovator. And that's where Charity introduced me as a developer. I like to take that little acronym and take it across the world. That's my job. So we're a really good team together. We really have always been for almost 30 years, a great team. And it's been a great personal relationship and a great business relationship.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal guy. You and I have had a lot of interaction recently, equally the same, extremely talented and savvy as with our interactions with each other. So what is your origin story? How on earth, did you get into automotive, Bob?
I don't know if it's typical of today, but I got in it by accident. Like a lot of people get in the car businesses by accident. I had a business. It failed. I was really young, 25 years old, advertising and marketing. So my background's advertising and marketing. And after about 4 or 5 years, I had about 18 employees. Thought I was too young to know that I didn't know what to do. Ended up closing the business and really was looking for a job at IBM or Xerox. And a good friend of mine was the GM of a Toyota store they just launched, and it was a new point. And he said, "Why don't you come to work for me?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I don't want to sell cars. I mean, that's not a career path." And, IBM back in those days were paying about 18.9 to their entry level salespeople. His average Toyota salesperson, big secret, was making about 35. And I'm like, of course, my hand went up, and I went like, okay, so how do I get started? So like most people, I got in the business because of the monetary aspects of that business. Was a really well held, closely held secret, right? Not by design, it just is. And of course, that every year I got better. And every year I looked in the mirror and said, I need to get a real job. And so look at me, 35 years later now, this is my real job when I look in the mirror. So, and I worked my way up. If you ask the dealer principal who hired me back in the day, he'd say he found me in the gas station pumping gas and then moved me up to be GM in the store over a 15-year period. Well, that's not totally accurate. It's very close to being true. So, it's two parts of that business. Number one, you still don't need a college degree to get in. You can make phenomenal money. I made more money as a salesperson than most of the customers that I took credit apps on. But what's really great about that business is it teaches you some things you don't learn in life easily: negotiation, communication, how to, be able to work in a social environment, how to build a reputation, how to maintain and have trust and transparency. So you don't get that very much in an academic environment. And I always said that everybody should at least sell cars for a year, just so you can just see what those skill sets really are about. Interacting with banks, that's the whole 9 yards.
It's amazing. I like you, by accident, I got in 1985 for Tyson Buick in Fort Worth, and a lot of different reasons. And then I did really well for the first 90 days and then fell flat on my face. I had it all figured out, Bob. And a gentleman by the name of Mike Biggers, who's still a friend of mine today, took me under his wing. And I really understood then. So I was on the fence. And after that 90 days, I was off the fence. And I wanted to continue to climb and climb and climb. When I heard the term BDC or BDM and went through Traver, that was a pivoting point for the entire dealership, because I used to plan. We didn't have obviously the technology like we had today, but I'd walk the inventory. I worked the service department. I loved getting there early and work the service department and see what came in on trades, etc. But I would plant my happy rear end on the back of the tailgate of a truck, and my objective was to make 10 calls a day and get 2 ups, two guests that I could, practice the art of salesmanship. And it was fascinating. But you know what? I wasn't good at making calls. I was much better in person than I was at making calls. It didn't really crystallize for me until I went through Traver boot camp. It was,
yeah. And if you think about that today, so we do sales and service BDC today, as you know, still. And but if you look at it today, that was an art form back then. Everybody was good face to face, but they used to say that my guys aren't good on the phone. And I'm like, well, how good are they face to face if they're not good on the phone? So, I always saw that as kind of an out. That was an easy out to say my guys aren't good, right?
Yeah.
So Charity asked me a little bit earlier before the broadcast a few things about myself, and I'm inquisitive. So think about this. I came to work for John after running a store, and I had an opportunity to get in thousands of stores to see what they were doing. So I was like a little kid in a candy shop for my whole career with great mentors. Everybody kind of wrapped their arm around me, because I was a learner, and they would spend time with me, even though I was the slowest learner in the room, I used to say. So today when I look at what we should be doing in this business is we should be mentoring, we should be giving back. But we got to find a student. You just can't teach people that don't want to be a student. So it's really, to me, one of the keys that I'm sure you and I experienced in our careers is we were intuitive. We wanted to know what we didn't know, and that caused us to be teachable. And then people love to wrap their arms around you. You just need to ask. And people love to help you out.
They do.
Even competitors will help you out. You
Yep.
know, if you're sincere and you're inquisitive. So I think that's been the key. BDC was all about doing things that we didn't know we needed to do, right? And giving it into a format. It wasn't a personality, wasn't the phone. It was really communication skills. I think that's still the key in today's life is how well of a communicator are you? And I don't mean that by articulation. I mean that by comprehension and engagement. Those are really, engagement's one of my favorite words. If you're not engaged, I don't know what you're doing today, you know? Why are you doing this, you know? So sorry to ramble on there.
No,
but
no, that's exactly what we like. I remember that, which I found kind of interesting when you're talking about salespeople and what they actually learn. So I remember the downturn with technology, and I think it was 2000 where the bubble popped. And of course, you and I are both familiar with the because of where your company is. That was an IT corridor there in Allen and North Dallas and McKinney. So I mean, there was a lot of people that lost their jobs, and a lot of them ended up selling cars. And what I found something was really interesting, and they were salespeople in their professions, right? But I have noticed that somebody that develops the art form of engagement, communication, and building relationships with people, if they like you, trust you, believe you, buy from you, all that stuff. But if they, I've seen people in the car business leave and flourish in other organizations. But I saw a lot of people in those other organizations that came and they couldn't quite get it. Like they did in their current IT company. It was like a different mindset altogether. It was amazing.
yes, I think it's one of the industries that are so dynamic. It's just fun to be in. No
Yep.
matter what time, what climate we're in, if it's incline or declining, you know, I just feel as though it's a great industry to be in.
Everybody wants a car. Everybody wants a car, a new or pre. It doesn't make any difference. People say, "Oh, I'm not." Yeah, yeah. If the circus, everybody wants a car. Everybody's driving a car, and I mean, it's like the whole United States is your playground for sales. It's just amazing. I love it.
I used to go to cocktail parties and I would tell them I was in advertising and nobody would talk to me all night, you know. When I told them I ran a Toyota store, I got to hear every Buick story out there, you know. Well, my car's doing this, my car. So it's a common thread we all have, isn't it?
Oh.
Automotive. If you like it or you don't like it, it's still a common thread, you know,
It is.
for all of us.
Toyota, 1990, beginning of 92, I was working at Toyota of Richardson, not too far
Yes.
from where your office
With
is.
Steve.
Grosjean. Yes.
Yes.
Still a very dear friend of mine.
He
to
was in
this
my
day.
20 group. He was in my 20 group back in that day. We talked about visiting stores that John was working with.
Small world. But let me tell you what, you remember this then, the emerald green Camry with the tan interior. Man, that
Couldn't get
was
it.
it, man.
Right.
People were just standing in line for that color combination with that new body style. It was amazing. And I got to be a part of that. It was those were some easier times, I should say. But anyway, I digress a little bit. Charity, please, I know you got a question.
Sure.
Keep us on track, Charity.
Yeah. Well, I was doing a little research on you, Bob, and I
Charity does
read.
that.
Did you use
that-
AI to Google me and look
Oh
up my
no,
bio?
I did it the old-fashioned way.
Okay.
You said that the automotive business is addictive, and I wanted you to elaborate on that.
Well, I think that, you know, if you look at how we came up through that business, in my career at least, we put a lot of hours in. I mean, they were 15-hour days. We didn't take a day off. I know that sounds crazy today with balance of life being so important to everybody, but I'm sure Russell and I spent a lot of days there because you felt as though if you weren't there, you weren't making any money, that you weren't accomplishing your goal, right? And the other part was, since there was really no cap on how much money you could make, nobody said when you hit 20 cars, we're going to quit paying you, right? the whole idea is, wow, this is an industry you could really do well in. And I think that it's, if you listen to, all of us have heard of Stephen Covey at some point in our lives. You pick up one side of the stick, you get the other, right? So you got to remember that when you pick up the addictiveness of that, it's you pick up the other side of that stick, which means that it probably throws your life a little out of balance if you're in this business because of the hours that you work, and you're kind of consumed by the next deal and the next customer. And it's an urgent environment. If you look at the four quadrants, urgent, urgent, and if it's important, if it's not important, if it's not urgent. And in the car business, there's a lot of urgency. Every day when I walked in as the GM at 7 o'clock in the morning and unlocked the door, I never knew what was going to happen. It was like a day full of surprises.
It was.
And I think that's what's so addictive about it. When I went to work for John, we didn't work Saturdays. And every Saturday I showed up at the office and worked the whole day for probably about a year. Now, the dealers appreciated it because they knew I was still working like they were. But the reality is that's how addictive that can be.
Now, let me ask, Bob, I'm sure you never did this, but I would go to malls and shopping centers. I was very proud to have that title. And I would put them in windshields and make conversation and engage people at restaurants and say, if you ever need a good deal on a newer pre-owned car, I'm your guy. Everybody loves to say, oh, I know somebody so-and-so. This, they love saying that kind of. I would even go up on Sundays when we were closed, Bob, and talk to people and hand them my cards when they didn't want to be associated with the sales process. They were just, looking after church or whatever the case may be. Did you ever do that on Sunday?
Well, I think what's really unique about that, and the reason why I think it's a little addictive, Charity, is I would go to a wedding and I would be reaching over to get a piece of chicken off of the buffet. And a person on the other side of the buffet would be reaching for a piece of chicken. And we would look at each other and know that I had sold them a car. Wow. It is because if you want to be socialized in that day and time, I mean, you knew everybody. Just because it's such an influenced business by, who do you use today to do that? I would have people buy cars for me that we didn't even sell. I'd have somebody want to buy a new Jeep and they buy it through me at the Toyota store because they wanted to do business with me, because I'd go pick it up for service. I'd bring it back in. I would take care of them like lifelong customers, like they should be. In one of our 20 groups, for the longest time was Carl Soule. So I got an opportunity to meet Carl and spend some time up in Dallas. Wow. Because he was in our 20 group. So if you look at the exchange, the business, mentors that ran those businesses and the ability to interact with them, and the way they treated their employees and the way their employees treated their customers, I mean, it's probably a really great model to look at. Well, the car business sometimes has a bad connotation. The reality is when you're there, people take care of people. I mean, they really are in the people business. So I think that's part of the addictiveness, Charity, is, it's not one and done like most people think. I mean, to survive in this business, you had to have that type of relationship with your customer. The dealer had that kind of relationship. I used to say we got CRM because we got too big to know everybody face to face. And that's why we needed CRM to do a little cheating for us so I could look stuff up, right? But I was the kind of guy that still walked through the service department in the morning. And the reason why is I had to walk through the lounge area to get to the showroom. And in the lounge area, probably 10 of those 15 customers were mine. And, I didn't want to be embarrassed by not knowing who they were. So I started up on top of the roof of the building, going through glove boxes, looking at owner manuals just to see if I signed off on them or not, just because that's how dynamic that business is as far as relationships are. And then today we have CRM that allows us to do that quicker and faster. But the question really is the technology enabling us? Are we using it as an enabler, or do we use it as it's just we think it'll do it for us? And that doesn't really happen even in AI today. We need that human touch. So we need to use our tools as enablers. I think this is a real people-to-people business. I think it's going to be that way even in the near future. So we really got to be good at it. So, when we look at FixedOPS as an example, we call a dealership today, they miss a lot of calls, and
Oh my God.
the customers really just want to have an interaction. They want somebody to pick up the phone, take care of them, make them feel confident that they have a scheduled appointment for next week and that we understand why they're coming in and that they're confident when they get there, we know who they are and it was set up properly. And some of those fundamentals today we still lack. We miss that. And it's not because dealerships want to not do a good job there. They don't have the staff. There's a lot of volume that they never have dealt with before, and there's a lot of competition out there taking a lot of that business from them for the last 30 years. It's not new that 2/3 of that business goes to an independent at some point in time. So, there's some great challenges out there today. That's why I think it's addictive. I think it's encouraging. I love being in this business because you get to solve big problems that make a big difference. So, if you could solve the retention program, I think the average day that I see recently, 31 to 40% of our customers stay after 10 years. And if you could get that to 70%, what would that do to our business? It would change it so dramatically. And, there are reasons why that's not happening. And I believe it's because we're so busy being urgent that we forget to go into quadrant 2, which is to do the things that are important. Right. So you got to be careful about being consumed by that urgency fire that you have to fight every day. I used to say opening up the doors was like in the service lane was chaos. It was the beginning of chaos in the morning.
Oh, it gets really crazy. The numbers that you just talked about, I understand them. The first part of the defection starts at 7 to 12 months, and as time goes on and on and on, it gets higher and higher and higher. But I wanted to make a comment about your addiction to somebody coming in. Buying a car is not like any other experience.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to say a few words about our new sponsor, WYNN'S. People who love cars love WYNN'S. With over 80 years of experience in innovation, WYNN'S leads the industry with product and system innovations that drive vehicle performance and longevity. WYNN'S leads through our innovation, our technology, and the products we create. We bring a legacy of superior performance that professional service providers trust through our heritage of innovative formulas and unparalleled service. It starts with fuel and oil, and it ends with excellence. Our dedication to research and development has led to more than 18,000 granted and pending patents across our company. And that drive continues today at WYNN'S. New vehicle technology like EV requires leading-edge service and products. WYNN'S ensures our products meet EV requirements and still provide the same high level of protection that we've always offered. We meet tomorrow's needs by using our knowledge and technology today. WYNN'S brings innovative, technically advanced, professional-grade solutions to the world. Our legacy of innovation and performance is always copied, but never outrun. So thank you, WYNN'S, for sponsoring the What the FixedOPS podcast.
And as we're talking dreams and goals that these clients have, to see the look on their face, if it's handled right, getting this car that meets their needs, wants, and even their desires, or it's representation of where they're at in their life and their family and the things that are important to them, finding out all those things, but seeing them happy and driving away like that, that is addicting. That is really addicting for me. You also mentioned Carl Sewell, a name synonymous, obviously, with service. God wrote the book on it, right? Many of them. And of course, I grew up selling cars in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and but the way they integrate, instead of being siloed for variable versus fixed, it was amazing. And I learned very early on, like you'd mentioned, I show up early and I'd work the service drive. And I've shared this before, I'm going to share it again. I learned the six most powerful words in the English vocabulary from working the service drive with a heat case, a lady that got out of her car coming up. I can't remember if it was just an advisor or the service manager. It was so long ago, but she was on fire. She was upset, and he approached her, kept his distance, and she just went off. Now, it seemed like forever, but honestly, it was really only about 30 or 40 seconds. But it seemed like when I was watching it, and probably in the middle of it, it seemed like forever. as soon as she paused at about 30 to 35 seconds, all during this time, I was watching his eyes and he was shaking his head, not to respond, to listen, to understand. This guy was a pro. And when she paused long enough, he looked at her and said, I apologize. Can you forgive me? That was it. He shut up after that. And I mean, this lady was apologizing to him. It was really amazing how disarming those words really were if they know you were paying attention to them. I learned that in Service Drive.
Yeah, I think that, the challenges we faced in the past, and the challenges we're facing today and in the future are changing. They're shifting, So if I look at it today, I'll give you a great example. I think it was Kaylee I was talking to, or it was Brooke, one of the two. And they were telling me their car had been in for service and they had declined some work. And I thought was really interesting is they reached out to the dealer and they never got a response back to get the decline work handled. So if you look at, so basically what you and I experienced was a lot of face-to-face interaction. So we could get a lot done with the customer. They could see our physiology. Today, what I call it is today, a customer, when they call or they show up, most of them call before they show up, as we all know. You only have one shot. When we used to get them face to face. You could recover a little better. But today, Google has a term. It's called zero moment of truth. And I love that term because it says that in the car business, if I use my developer and take that term and try to apply it, what that means is when that phone rings, you have one opportunity. When that customer shows up face to face, you have one opportunity to do business today. That's the difference between, I think, where we were in the past and where we're at today, because there are so many more opportunities. So if you take just some simple stories of people that we all know that have a car, the biggest advantage that dealers have today is just paying attention to what their customer really wants. But it's complex because it used to be some assembly required. And I say today, what dealers really want to do is simplify the assembly process because it's complex today. So pickup and delivery. I mean, if you pick up and delivered my Ford truck, my wife does all my servicing for all the 3 vehicles we own. If you said to her, I'll come out, pick the vehicle up, leave you a vehicle, not even leave you a vehicle, just get the vehicle back to you by the end of the day, and you don't have to come here, they'd own her business. She wouldn't care if they're 55 miles away or 5 miles away.
It's over.
It's over. So I use these examples and go like, dealers are challenged today. What are the challenges today? Telematics. We do a lot of work with telematics today. Telematics are soon, if they're not already there, most OEMs, that the car's going to tell you on the dash, on your screen, that it's time for your service. Do you want to push this button and set your service appointment at the dealership? Right.
Yep.
And the OEMs believe that they're going to capture that customer with that technology. And, I always look at that a little skeptically and say, yep, what you just did was remind me my oil needs changed. But there are 13 different service facilities between me and the dealership to get that done. What makes you think I'm going to schedule at the dealership? Because I got to drive down there. I got to wait for it. And then I got to get it back. Why don't I just go to the first one that's a mile away from my home and do that? And that's where I think we have to get really smart today and go like, what? The only way to supersede that is say, Russell, when that comes on, you hit the button, we'll come get the car. We'll send the mobile van out and do it in your driveway or your office. So we got to really leapfrog this. I spent some time, as you guys know, we were bought by ADP in 2000. So I spent a lot of time running the consulting division at ADP as vice president, general manager. And that I got an opportunity to go in the heavy equipment, Caterpillar, John Deere, Komatsu. They've been doing preventive maintenances on those heavy equipments by doing mobile service forever.
Yep.
I'm not even going to say the last decade. I'm going to say forever.
Forever. Yeah.
Forever. And I'm like, we're so slow in catching up there, right? And there's some areas in the auto industry they're far behind in, like CRM. I mean, if you called to rent a backhoe today to get your pool done and the contractor needed a backhoe, the guy that's going to answer the phone's working off a spreadsheet that's as updated as this morning, but that equipment might already be rented. So they don't have the DMS tools that we have today. But one of the things they certainly do really well, if we want a lesson, is being able to do preventive maintenance in the field. And that's the only way they do it today. So if you look at that, I look at, yeah, I could stop 15 places, but if I don't have to go anywhere, you guys got me beat. Now, I do know that there are other facilities outside of franchise dealerships that are offering that service.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get that service today from an outside competitor. So we have to be really careful if this industry is going to continue to grow and we stay ahead of this business and keep the customer, that we have to be quicker at this. So, I look at the average store when we talk to them, and if they're doing pickup and delivery, they're doing like 5 a day. And I go, great. How many ROs do you write a month? 6,000, 3,000, big stores. And I'm like, and you're only doing 5 pickup and deliveries a day. I mean, you haven't even put a dent in it. And then some of them will say, even smaller stores at 1,000 or 1,500 ROs a month, they're going like, we do it when we think about it. We do it if the customer asked for it. And I'm like, so Charity, that's why I say this business, I'm addicted to it, because I look at, John and I used to kid. He used to tell me, some of the benchmarks in our industry are set by garden hose. And if you guys know, garden hose is pretty low to the ground, right?
Yep.
Pretty much touches the ground. So
Yep.
it's pretty easy to step over that. I think this is a really great point in our industry as a milestone to say, we have the technology. Now, how do we put the processes together and drive an executable that we can deliver against every day? And we don't have to be perfect. The customers don't expect us to be perfect. We never have been. But it needs the work and it needs to be consistent. We need to communicate. Because if I picked your car up today, my fear is I did do that as a free service and I got it back to the dealership. You're going to call the dealership 3 or 4 times today, not get anybody on the phone to answer a status update call.
Completely.
So what we're looking for is what dealers have all this stuff lined out. So when they actually are a 10, they don't become a 2, because that's the worst thing you could do. If you're a 2, you want to be a 2 through the whole process.
Yep.
So you don't want to disappoint me up front. So I think the challenges today are that we see, I mean, I can turn an internet lead into a phone call in 20 seconds today, which is amazing. And I can get that customer committed to come in. But what happens when they get there makes all the difference in the world, right? And I can come pick up your car today in service. We offer those services to our stores. And I can answer that phone call that you can't get to. But once when they get there, you guys now, even if the customer's still remote and you pick the car up, the communication back and forth on a regular basis to that customer is really important. So, some of the solutions we work on, we're adding people to be concierge for those services, so that there's never a place where we don't know where the car is or what's going on. And I think that those are some of the turns in the market that you're going to be looking for as a dealer. Who can help me with make this less complicated? Can I do some of this? I'm not a logistics expert at a dealership. As a service director, I'm a complaints department, and I generate revenue. But if you look, there's 2 things that we're really not great at in service. One is there's no chief revenue officer in service, as I'd like to say. True. So you know this because you're in fixed ops. There's not very many of those service managers that are proactively going out and driving business because they're so busy trying to maintain the business they got today. Right?
Yeah, it's horrible. So I want to paint a picture, because I spend about literally not about 3+ hours a day, starting early in the morning in different forums and stuff, talking about these kind of things. And there's a big paradigm shift, which I learned from Traver BDC, but there's a big paradigm shift, I think, and it's accelerated post-COVID. Where I think the future, because they say sales sells the first car and service sells all the rest, right? So it's critical, but we've tried, I hear the same stuff, even on the sales side, Bob, for 50 years, or I've been in the business 38 years, and I hear the same in the rooms. These younger people are talking about the same challenges that I was talking about 38 years ago. Nothing's changed, okay? But things really are changing, and they're particularly changing for service. If service is not the single largest revenue producer of the dealership, it soon will be. We know it's at least the second largest, right? So transparency is important. Communication, answering the phone call, communicating the customer at every level, mobile service, pickup. I mean, people just don't live and die and look forward to sitting in a nice lounge area while their car's being serviced. They'll pay for mobile. They'll pay for pickup and drop off. It's like amazing. I think that is being accelerated along with video MPIs, transparency on pricing. What happens when you have to take pictures on pickup and drop off? There's so many different things that the forces are aligning with. And I think we have an opportunity because of electric vehicles and where it may or may not go, but it's coming, that to have all that information and to get the business that we have pushed away over the last 38 years. So what all the non-franchise entities, the independents that you're talking about, that people have to drive by, that have stopped in there instead. But I think this is an opportunity to really make a huge impact and turn this around and stop that defection rate that you're talking about. What are your thoughts on that, Bob?
Yeah, I think that if I'm a dealer today, I want to lay out on a board somewhere all the touch points that we should really, what's the ideal world look like for us? What would be the best case scenario? And then identify where we're not good at that and where the gaps, right? And then look at the gaps and go like, who can I fill that gap with for two reasons? Number one, long enough until I can figure it out and apply the resources I need if I want to own that space, if I think I'm an expert. Or two, continue to let the expert do that. Why move on to the other areas that I'm better suited to do? But not having a full-blown plan to work with these customers, I think is a miss in today's world, because it's going to get more and more difficult to compete with people in this business, because it's not about the store down the street. The store could be an hour or two away and they could still give me that same service that you can give me. So you got to be really careful about today. If I'm a dealer, I'm laying that out going like, a great example of that is marketing. Even though I came up through advertising and marketing, I didn't think I was so smart that I didn't need an advertising agency at the dealership to help me. I knew more than the average GM knew, but that was not my job. My job was to hit my revenue targets, right? So if I look at this, even if we see trainers all the time leave us to go to stores and become the training coordinator, the training operations director for multiple rooftops. And the ones that were really smart would hire us to come in behind them to support them, because they knew they couldn't do it alone. So they were smart enough to say, listen, don't cut your budget by hiring me because you think I'm going to be that person to do it all. You're going to hire me because I'm the domain expert to help bring in the right people at the right time to do the right things.
Beautiful. Well said.
So I think what you got to look at as a dealer today, do I want to be in the logistics business today? And some of them do, and some of them are capable, but most of them aren't. Do I want to be in the digital marketing business today? We know that we've been doing this forever in sales and FixedOPS. There's a huge gap. There's a huge gap in marketing to our customers. And then if I take a look at some simple things like, every time we set an appointment with a customer in service, we bring up the fact they have 70,000 miles on the vehicle instead of just an oil change. Do they need to do the 60K recommended by the OEM? Right. And the customers then are not surprised when they get to the store. It sets the advisor up for a better opportunity. But what you just did is, I'm not going to be there for 45 minutes and then you guys tell me it's going to take 2 hours because there's 3 things they need to do for that 60K. And I'm like, listen, a lot of our customers tell us no. More of them say yes than no. But the idea is it a yes or a no? The idea is you gave the customer the option.
We are passionate about helping consumers find a great, trusted place to get their car fixed. We have 4 million uniques who come to our website each month for car repair information, and we help them find our REPAIRPAL certified locations. We also have amazing partners like USAA that offer our REPAIRPAL certified network to their customers and members. So how are we going to help dealers? Well, dealers sell 100% of the cars, but over time, after the warranty expires, the repairs go up and the revenue potential goes up, but people keep leaving the dealer over time after the warranty. By years 10 or 12, only about 20% of people are still servicing at the dealer. Why is that? There's one dominant reason, and that is price perception. And being RepairPal certified helps you overcome the primary price perception problem. So come let us show you how RepairPal can help you too.
So they feel when they get there that you treated them right going in.
Yes.
And then, I've personally gone through the experience of getting my car serviced. Having someone send me a video of my brakes. I recently just got a state inspection in Texas on my truck. That's all it needed. I sent it in there. My bill was $3,200 3 days later. Now, I got to tell you, I approved every one of those things that needed to be done. They did it all over texting. They did it all with video. They did it all with mobile pay. They offered to bring the truck back to me. I'm like, I would have to pay for that anywhere, somewhere.
That's right.
And what's really interesting is I want to go back there again.
Was it because of the experience?
They made it easy. I'm like, I still needed to get, so it's not a question today. It's either time or money. Do I have the time or do I have the money? I'm like, I'm the kind of guy that if I'm not the expert, we have a ranch here. You won't see me out there building fences unless I like to do it. And every once in a while I might want to throw my hat in the ring, but I'm not leading the project. Trust me. I'm the guy going out there saying, hey, I'd like to spend an hour with you guys and have a little fun. But at the end of the day, I'm not doing that for a living, right?
And you're not mowing the yard either.
Well, think about it. You talked about cutting your grass earlier, right? I'm like, listen, I love to get the right people to come in and do the right things for me that I know I'm either not good at or it's not where I should be spending my time. And I think we don't need to be everything to everybody, but what we need to do is support ourselves. Traver will say I'm a developer by nature, but he'll say my real skill set is a team builder. I always look for people that are better than me, Charity, because I'm hoping they'll take my job sometime, but nobody ever has, just so you know. Yeah. But what it allows me to do is have the confidence that they can do things that I like to do, but they do better than me sometimes, right? And I know that's the relationship you guys have together over there. I've heard such great things about how good you are at what you do. It's not that somebody else couldn't do it. It's why when you're the best at doing that, right?
Well,
And I
thank
think I think that's the key. We got to be careful that we look at services and go like, what's the best place to plug this in? Because if they're that good, there's always going to be a return on investment.
Yeah.
I look at a different word. I call it return on effort. If I got to spend this much time, was it worth it?
There was a time growing up through the ranks, learning and making a lot of mistakes that I thought that even in a management role, that I thought I had to know how to do it as better than anybody else. Now, here I am where I'm at in my life today. There's about 3 things that I do really well, and that's where I spend most of my time doing that. Because I must tell you, our company wouldn't even be where it is today if it wasn't for Charity. What she does and what she brings to the table, and sometimes I just show up and I'm ready to go, and it looks like, oh wow, no, I make it a point. Charity, for all of you out there, is the reason why this is even happening today. And now Patrick is in the fold too, because I can't quite frankly do that. And you know what? I'm okay with that too. Surround yourself with people that know more than you do, right?
Yes, it's so exciting, when I talk to a dealer and he's killing it in an area that he isn't an expert in. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
That is so cool to be able to say, we're really not the expert here, but we're killing it because we got the right people who have ownership of it. They've taken it off our plate. They do a great job. We don't even want it back,
So
And
what I hear you saying is
look
you're
at
still waiting for
businesses
that. You're still waiting for that person to take your job then, right?
I'm always am because, I'm so inquisitive. It's hard to keep up with me, but, just so you guys know, I think that's the real key in business is, why do we have attorneys? Why do we have, and the reason is because we don't want to be the expert. And number one, number two, there are areas we love to do and areas that we do because we have to. When somebody says, are you good at everything? I go, when I have to be, I'm good at everything. But is that where I want to live? And the answer is not normally. Can somebody else do that better than me and have more fun than me? Yes. Then what am I doing it? Let them do it. Everybody, to me, my job is to build a team, give them the resources, let them have fun. let them enjoy the ownership of it. We all reap the rewards. So, I apply that to every business I see and go like, who those people are. When you walk into a dealership, I can tell you within 5 minutes, or a business, within 5 minutes, the culture of that business. And that's what everybody's getting their arms around today is the word culture. And I'm like, you can tell culture as soon as you walk into any business.
You can
And you
feel it.
see how the people treat people they don't even know. I visited I hope you get the same experience. When you came to BD College, our BD boot camp, I believe we had about 24,000 senior managers spend 4 or 5 days with us at that boot camp. That's incredible.
That's great.
If you told me we could get dealers and GMs and GSMs and service directors to spend 5 days in Houston, Texas, and we filled it up 42 people a week for 3 weeks a month for years, for decades. And they went away with a book that today, if I still ask them, they have the book. I call it the Traver alumni, Russell. When I have dealers call me today, they go, Bob, we want a better deal because we're part of the Traver alumni. And I always laugh. They can tell me what class they were at, what person they talked to. Now, during this period of time, you got to remember that was one service of many, but nobody ever talks about the other services. And let me tell you why. It goes back to, people that write books that go like, at the end of the day, don't tell me I wrote a great book. Don't tell me I did a great workshop. What we're really listening for really closely is, hey, you changed my life personally, or you changed my business. Mm-hmm. And that was one of those areas that we did so well that people came back and said, you changed my life and my business.
That was powerful.
And that's what you're looking for. If I'm a dealer today, I'm going like, am I changing people's lives? Am I changing this business? Am I changing our customers? Are we keeping up with what they need? And are we giving them the things that are hard to deliver, but we can figure it out? We might not have to do it ourselves. We need somebody to help us figure it out. We'll go get somebody to figure us out. One person asked me recently, so Bob, you've been doing this for a long time. And I said, yes. And I said, what's one of the secrets for you to be successful? And I go like, it's simple. I can count every milestone in my career a mentor. Mm-hmm. I thought I knew it all. I didn't know close to it all. And because I was transparent, I'm trusting, and I'm a learner, I had people wrap their arms around me and say, come on, kid, let me show you. Let me show you how to do this right. And I got to tell you, without that mentoringship through my career, who knows how I would have ended up, right? So when I look at dealers today, I'm going like, you don't have to be the guy. You don't have to be the organization. You need to go seek help on people that really do this well. And a lot of times we get kind of this, you know what I'm talking about when we're talking to key business owners. They kind of go like, give you the Heisman, like when you were on the lot and they said, right. I was just looking, dealers sometimes give you well, we already got this. And I'm like, the question shouldn't be, we already got it. The question should be, what do you know that I don't know that could help me do better at it? Now, to me, those are the kind of dealers that are dangerous. And those are the kind of organizations that are dangerous because they know they're successful for a reason. The more successful people become, the less likely they are to go look for help. And I'm like, that should be just the opposite. The more successful I am, the more I should be looking for. Where are the areas I'm not as successful? Where can I go get help? Right?
Absolutely. When what you mentioned, I have an acronym that people that have that level of status, Bob, is they're still too arrogant to understand success. It is all about the people. They get to a point they think they're untouchable instead of remaining humble and kind and realizing that everything that we are today is a product of people around us. And you mentioned earlier, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear, or vice versa. That's so true. Mentors are extremely important in my life in many different realms. It's crucial to my growth.
Yep. And I think you need them in every part of your life. You need financial advisors, you need religious advisors, you need professional advisors, you need medical advisors. You need to go. Traver will laugh because if I have a problem with even a pet, something as simple as a horse, he'll go, I don't know what the problem is, but I'll guarantee you found multiple solutions and you found the right person to fix the problem right the first time. Because what I don't like is finding somebody that can help me with the problem, but not fix the problem, right? I'm like, I don't need to know I'm bleeding. I need you to fix the fact I'm bleeding. I don't want to make multiple trips to get that done, you know? So he'll tell you that I become an expert when it comes to finding that person, regardless of what area of my life I'm having an issue with. I will go seek out the best person and figure a way to get them to work with me to solve a problem because I know that's the secret. The secret is find the best person. And you know what's really interesting? Even people that you think are untouchable, if you ask them, they can help you and you're specific in what you ask for. They're more than helpful to either point you in the right direction or help you themselves. I mean, it's just incredible, but sometimes we just forget the key word is
to ask.
ask.
They know I used to think people like that were untouchable. And I know a lot of people out there probably do. But if you genuinely ask somebody and you tap on them and you're willing to get a little bit outside of your comfort zone, those people will bend over backwards to introduce you, to love on you, and to help you go to the next level, as long as you're genuine. But I found over time is that when you don't take their suggestions, which are then they don't want to work with you anymore. They're there to assist and help, and as long as you're moving forward and willing to step outside your comfort zone because they have something that you want, you ask them, how did you get here? How did you do that? I think they're always willing, and they'll love on you all the time, won't they, Bob?
I'll tell you a great story. I hope you don't mind. You can cut this and edit later, but
No.
We'd love to hear it.
My brother broke his neck and was sent to the Orlando trauma unit. And I went to visit him. And this is a while ago with my mom. And he wasn't getting any better. They had him in intermediate care. He wasn't getting really much better. And so one night we went to a dinner. It was around Christmas time. They were doing a media event. And they asked us if we could stay for the dinner so they could fill up the room because it was a local TV station. And I said, that's really okay. I'd be glad to help you out. It was the Ronald McDonald House. It was awesome. Wow. They took really good care of my mom for a couple of weeks while she was there. And I said, sure, we'd be glad to do that. So we're sitting at the table. A young lady comes over to me, hands me a menu and asks me what we want to eat. And I looked at the way she was dressed and the jewelry she had on, and she was a volunteer from the hospital. And I just asked her, what do you do at the hospital? And she said she was the CEO.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, really? And she's like, now this is how powerful that statement we just made was. And she said, what are you doing here? And I told her my brother was in, but I was concerned about him. I hadn't seen a doctor in 3 or 4 days and come through. And I said, but I got to tell you, your staff, first of all, your mission statement, they follow your mission statement. And I think she was surprised, even though I knew what her mission statement was. Yeah. And I said, when I wanted a cup of coffee, you guys would walk me through one building outside to another building to take me to the commissary where the coffee was still being served at that hour. Your nursing staff has been so easy to work with. Your PT, OT, RT, everybody, respiratory therapy, everybody that has touched me. I have a story to tell about how the experience was and how awesome it was. And she said, Bob, I said, but I have not talked to the surgeon, haven't been able to get a doctor's opinion. And I just know my brother's, I've been here before with other family members. I just don't see him getting any better. And she said, do you mind if you retold that story? And I said, no. She said, I have my whole entire medical team here today. I have head of surgery. I have head of the commissary, head of food and beverage. She said, I have the head of nursing. I have a head of occupational therapy. My whole team's here. Do you mind if I bring them out of the kitchen and you tell them exactly what you just told me? And I did. And she said, the next day they moved him back into ICU. And, my mom will say today, I saved his life. I doubt that. But I'm just saying that's the power of being able to communicate effectively, asking the right person who is in a position to help, And I got to tell you that the next day the surgeon called me, said, we're moving him. You know, he's been lingering there too long. He got the same nurses he had in ICU. He stayed another week in ICU. He's doing really well in Florida today. He's 6 years older than me. And I got to tell you that that is proof. So that whole reason for that story is to talk about, I look at my career and I go like, did the people that taught me how to communicate properly, how much of that did they influence to put me in a position to use that when I needed it?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I say that, you know, you got to surround yourself with the right people. You got to be able to ask specifically with integrity of what you need. I didn't whine. I didn't complain. And literally, I told them what a great job they did. And I have to say that I asked at the end, is there anything I can do for you? And the answer was no. And I said, you report to a board of directors, I'm sure, which also helps with your funding. I'd love to be able to write a letter to your board of directors. And she said, absolutely. I'd be glad to send you their email addresses.
Wow.
So I wrote a really nice letter to our board of directors just to say, this is the best experience I've had. And I've been through many of those times that are hard. They're hard times. And I'll probably go through more of them in my life. But I got to tell you, just the fact that knowing what to do, who to ask, and how to ask was invaluable. So if I run a business today, I always seek out those people when I'm looking to do something. They're like, okay, so what's your motive behind asking them to do it? I need somebody to do this that's better than I am at it. I know that I could do it, but why? At the end of the day, if they do it better, they do it every day, they love doing it, they're totally focused on it. It lets me go find 4 or 5 other partners like them that continue to grow my business, feed our families, feed our business families, help our stores, and change the industry. I mean, that's simple. So I hope that story wasn't off color in any
No,
way.
It's a great
right
story.
on point. Yeah, I mean that you're a great storyteller. It helps illustrate and make really profound points, which you've done. Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm always looking for, Charity, I'm always looking for how to be a better communicator.
Yeah.
It's not a negotiator. I'm not looking for technique, just so you guys know. I'm looking for fundamentals that are principally sound, that apply without being technique driven. And I think that gives you the honesty and the transparency that you need to get the help you need when you need it.
Mhm.
Wow.
It was very admirable, Bob. It's a great story, and man, I'm so happy your brother is doing well today. It's very fortunate.
Yep.
Absolutely. Oh man, that was we covered a lot. Charity,
We did.
normally we have very few questions. I mean, this has been
Mhm.
so insightful.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
It's good. It's good.
Well, maybe I'll choose one more.
Okay.
Because we're getting pretty close here. Okay. Here's one that's kind of it's probably one you haven't been asked before.
Charity's good at that, Bob.
Yeah, I want to hear what I haven't heard already, right? So you seem like a pretty positive guy. What do you do to dispel negative thinking or negative thoughts? Because like you said, life isn't always, rainbows and unicorns.
Well, I think you have to, depending on what kind of news you get. I mean, there's some personal things and then there's some business things, right?
Mhm.
I love to hear negative things about business because it tells me where we need to focus. So feedback, if it's positive or negative, is good feedback. I once learned from a dealer that I worked for. He sent me for training for a week, and he said, "What did you think of the training?" I said, "I hated it because I didn't learn anything." And he said, "See, that's your problem. You're not teachable." And I'm like, "What? Excuse me?" And he said, "You didn't learn what not to do." And I'm like, wow, that was powerful, right? And so if you look at that, negatives to me in business just means that it's feedback. That people are just trying to tell me that what we're doing is not working and we need to be better at it. If I also look at in my personal life, things always happen for a reason. So there's a reason that that happened. I might not be happy with the reason,
Sure.
but when I look back on it years later, I can kind of piece together the reason why it may have happened. And I think it's, somebody taught me that events are always going to affect you. Your response to that event will change your outcome.
Yep.
So that's how I kind of look at negatives. Mike Porro, who's the GM partner at Honda World, actually has a bracelet that he gave me that I usually have on every day. And it's just those simple things. It says E plus R equals O. ERO kind of fits in the fixed ops, right? But it's and that's proprietary from some trainer or some organization he works with that teaches, that skill set. But I love the terminology. It's simple, right? Events are always going to happen to you.
Right.
How you choose to respond. That's what's, sometimes you don't want a quick response, depending on how big the event is.
True.
Right? Because that response is going to change your outcome. So, sometimes we just need to stop and kind of digest that and then come back with a response. But, I've been really gifted in my life. At the end of the day, I wouldn't change anything that has happened to me for the outcome I'm at today. And I'm sure that we're never necessarily want surprises in our life, but I think it's all about how we respond to those surprises.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's based on your experience. So the more experience, I'm like a fine bottle of wine, I like to say, or bourbon. I might evaporate a little bit, but at the end of the day, I still taste really good, right? So the end in mind is still achieved, which is having a fine glass of something, that I enjoy. I think that is, and it's hard because the older I get in life, the more surprises I get, right? That I have to deal with. So I get up every morning, have a cup of coffee, spend my first hour, what most people would say in prayer or meditation or quiet time. I have that time just to myself, just so you guys know, the first hour of every day. And that sets me straight for the rest of the day.
That's
it gets
powerful.
So that I don't hit the ground with chaos. Because if I do get hit with chaos, it's okay. My day's pretty much planned out. What I'm going to do in my head, if I have to make adjustments, I can. But I didn't start off in chaos.
Yeah.
I started off preparing for the day.
I think that's important. You summed it up really well. I sometimes still think that the greatest solution that I've learned is that I really can't control people, places, and things. Stuff happens throughout the day, but I can certainly control how I act and react to it. Like what you just said, it's up to me how I react to it. The bigger it is, sometimes I gotta pause and really think it through. Particularly if I get emotionally distraught over it, I know I'm not going to make a logical decision or whatever that's going to be. So I gotta pause and reflect. Well said. Well done. Fine wine.
Yeah. It kind of makes me want to ask you, Bob, one of the questions we sort of enjoy asking people here on the show is if you could go back and give your 18-year-old self some advice, what would it be?
Just at 18 years old, I would say I'm a romantic by nature. And I would say at 18 years old, maybe to have a better plan, thought out. But I don't know if I would have done any better or worse with it, just so you know.
Yeah.
So everybody would say that I'm a romantic. I really, I do things that are intuitive to me.
I love that answer.
I would like to be better planned. It would put me in better position in some cases. But at the end of the day, I'm like, it wouldn't be who I am today.
True.
I used to try to lose weight. As you guys know, I'm a few pounds overweight. And last week somebody said, "Are you still trying to lose weight?" And I said, "No, I gave up. I think God wants me in this body for a reason. No matter what I do, I can't lose any weight." So I don't know if I changed anything back at 18 years old, Charity, if it would have made a difference.
That's so well
Well,
said.
it sounds good. It sounds like that you have no regrets, and even if you could do it over, probably wouldn't have made much of a difference
Yeah.
anyway.
Interesting you should say that, because that's always been my saying since I was a child, was at the end of the day, uh, do the things you want to do, because you never want to go back and say, I wish I would have done that. So just so you know, that has been the philosophy of my life. Don't ever second guess yourself. Do it or don't do it, but don't second guess yourself. You made a conscious decision.
Absolutely.
Now you're there. Let's go,
Mhm.
and make the best of what your decision is. You can adjust, you can change. Nobody says you're locked in, but you're right. That is my favorite saying, is no regrets. I don't want to say that I should have done this, I should have done that, because you know what? I have no regrets. I did what I wanted to do at that time.
Yeah.
So many people do, Bob. Unfortunately, they're just willing to get out a little bit outside of their comfort zone because they listen to too many people say, you can't do that. I tried that. That won't work. Well said.
I got to remember, I grew up in a family where respect for my mom is the ultimate thing. Even today, she's 90. She's 97 years old.
Wow.
And I still yell at the grandkids when they use language around her they shouldn't, right? Great grandchildren. And what's really interesting about my mom is I always tell them, you can't talk to my mom that way, because remember, she's not your grandmother or great grandmother. She's my mother. And my mother, nobody talks to my mother that way, right?
Good for you.
So part of that is I always stayed in a boundary, though, because of the respect I had for what people hoped that I would be, right? So there's two pieces of that. What would I, do I have any regrets? No, but I also stayed in the boundaries because I was respectful.
Mhm.
So I don't have a lot that I'm going like, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. That was crazy. That was a little off the wall. I was a pretty good kid.
Well,
I can imagine.
I'm, yeah. A lot of, yeah, that's another wormhole.
Respect's a hard word today. It is. You
It
look
sure is.
around and you go like, do people respect each other? Do they respect people's opinions? Do they respect, and at the end of the day, respect to me really tells me who you are.
Mhm. Mhm.
True. Well,
Yeah.
Bob, thank you so much. Bob Gower, COO, Traver Connect. It's been an honor and humbling to have you on today on WTF. It was so many takeaways, the wisdom and the nuggets that you shared, not only to us, but our entire audience. And we ask everybody out there, when you start seeing this, like him, love him, share him, reach out to him. He's certainly approachable, as he mentioned earlier. But thank you once again.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you and Charity. I really appreciate this. I know we didn't talk a lot about FixedOPS as a business, or the auto industry as an
That's
industry.
okay.
Talked a lot about life. And I'll just leave you guys with one thing. Somebody once said to me, how do you get high engagement scores? And I said, I just take the word and break it out. It's called, you have to be what? Engaged.
Yep.
And I always laugh when people ask me that question. How do you increase your engagement scores? Be more engaged.
Yeah. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
the reason Sherry and I struggled when we first started this, and of course the WTF and all of this is her idea. And I say we struggled for the first several episodes before we figured out we didn't just want to have people on here to talk specifically about their career. We wanted, and where we really think we hit a niche is, we talk about business, but you shared such human stuff with us, personal stuff. That's what really makes a good podcast, I believe, is the human side, the experience that people have, that shape and mold them, things that we can learn from. We talked a little bit about FixedOPS. I would much rather talk like what we talked about today. So thank you. Than to talk about just all the challenges and struggles and where we're going and what's happening. We got a little highlight on that, and that makes for the perfect podcast, I believe. And I know Charity agrees with me too, and I'm sure Patrick, because he'll be on here in a second, does as well. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bob.
Yeah.
You're welcome.